Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. I woke up fighting a tube in my throat. My hands jerked up on their own, clumsy and weak. Something held them down, straps or tape, I could not tell. A monitor exploded into faster beeps beside me, sharp and frantic. For a second, I thought I was dying for real this time. A nurse leaned over me and pressed my shoulder down. Her face was close and calm, which somehow scared me more. "Breathe slow for me, Ethan." Hearing my name in a place like that hit wrong. I had not told her anything, so somebody else had. "My name is Ethan and I am 34. By the time you get to this line, I know. You are already thinking I did something stupid, and you are right. But in that bed, I felt like some random body, not myself. I just stared at the ceiling and tried not to pass out again. They pulled the tube out and my throat burned rough. I coughed hard and tears came without any warning. The nurse gave me water through a straw, short, careful sips. "Easy," she said, watching my face like a lie detector. I swallowed and the first clear thought finally landed. Where is Lisa? The question hit before I even remembered why. My chest tightened in this weird mix of anger and fear. I turned my head slow toward the corner chair. It was empty, clean, like nobody had ever cared to sit there. "Do you know where you are right now?" Her voice sounded gentle, which somehow made me defensive. "A hospital," I rasped, which felt like the dumbest quiz. "And do you remember what happened before you got here?" I nodded too fast, then realized I actually had no idea. The last solid memory came in one sharp line. Lisa standing in our kitchen doorway, eyes colder than I remembered. "You're replaceable, Ethan, do you get that?" Then the door slammed loud enough to shake the cabinets. After that, only scattered bits, like someone cut out the film. We argued," I said, the words scratching my throat. She watched me for a second like she waited for more. "We'll go over that later." She adjusted something on the bed and checked the monitor again. "Your wife is not here yet, is she on her way?" I looked at that empty chair again and my stomach flipped. "Yes," I said too quick, "she's parking or something." The lie landed between us, small and pathetic. The nurse's eyebrows twitched just barely, like she heard the truth. "She can check in at the front desk when she arrives." I knew how it sounded, husband alone after a crash. I also knew I did not want to explain anything yet. Not the fight, not the bottle, not the way I left. So I stared at the blanket and counted my breaths like homework. The room felt crowded with things I was not saying. A different voice spoke from the doorway, firm and practiced. "Morning, Ethan, I'm Dr. Miller." He stepped closer and took the chart from the end of the bed. "You were brought in overnight after a single vehicle collision." The phrase sounded like something from the news, not my actual life. "Guardrail on the highway," he added, watching my reaction closely. "You hit hard enough to deploy everything and then some." I tried to move my legs and fire shot up my side. The monitor answered with a quick burst of faster beeps. "Don't do that yet," he said, and his hand hovered near my arm. "You lost consciousness at the scene." He said it like he was reading weather, steady and flat. "Minor head trauma, some rib fractures, plenty of bruising." "Was anyone with me?" I cut in, the question bursting out. Because if she had been there, this would be a different story. "No," he said, "you were alone in the car when responders arrived." The word alone hung there, heavier than all the medical terms. Alone on the road, alone in the bed, alone in that damn chair. I forced myself to look him in the eye anyway. "How did you even know to send someone?" I asked. He tapped the chart once like he needed a second. "Dispatch received a call from your phone," he said. Short call, very upset female voice, then it cut out. "We traced the location and sent a unit immediately." He waited, giving me space to claim the voice as my wife. My mouth went dry again for a different reason this time. I remembered my hand on my phone, numb and stupid. Messages half-typed, curses, apologies, all tangled together. I could not remember dialing, but I could almost hear her yelling. Her voice mixing with the seat belt alarm, both angry and sharp. "Do you remember making that call?" He asked it carefully, like he already knew I did not. I shook my head slow, which sent a dull ache through my skull. "Memory gaps are normal after trauma," he said. "You may remember more later, you may not." The nurse adjusted the IV line and glanced at me again. If your wife returns the hospital's call, we will let her up. Returns the call. There it was, the part nobody said directly to my face. They had tried to reach her and she had not answered. I could feel my pulse in my ears now, loud and uneven. Did you talk to her? I asked, hoping for something simple. The nurse lifted one shoulder, a small helpless motion. I wasn't here for that, but we left a message. She did not say what kind of message makes a spouse stay away. The doctor ran through the plan, meds, scans, all the boring stuff. I nodded at the right times, but my head was somewhere else. In my mind, I was back in the kitchen, glass in my hand. Her keys in hers, shaking slightly, though she would never admit that. I thought the worst part of that night was already over. They finally left the room and the quiet slammed into me. No voices, just machines and the faint hum somewhere behind the wall. I stared at my phone on the tray, screen dark, corner cracked. I could reach it if I twisted enough, if I ignored the pain. For a second I just watched it, like it might light up on its own. I reached out and every muscle protested, sharp and bitter. My fingers brushed the edge, pushed, dragged it closer inch by inch. I knew I should hit the nurse button and ask for help. Instead I held my breath and pulled until the cord tugged. That stupid little struggle felt more honest than anything I had said. I brought the phone to my chest and rested there, panting. My thumb hovered over the power button, suddenly afraid to press it. If I turned it on, I would see everything from the night. The texts, the call logs, the proof that the voice was hers. I would also see whether she had tried to reach me at all. You know that feeling when you stall on something simple? Not because it is hard, but because it makes things real. That was me with that cracked screen and my shaky thumb. I could feel two versions of my life waiting on the other side. One where she cared, one where she meant every word about replacing me. The nurse looked in through the small window on the door. I snapped my eyes shut and pretended to rest, phone hidden under the blanket. Childish move for a grown man, I get it, but I did it anyway. I was not ready to explain why my hands shook more now than before. It was easier to fake sleep than admit I feared my own notifications. In that bed with wires on my chest and dried blood in my hair, I still told myself she was probably filling out forms downstairs. Maybe she left to grab coffee, maybe she was with a social worker. I fed myself random excuses, anything that kept her in the building. Because the alternative was that she called for help, then walked away. The glass left my hand harder than I meant and cracked against the sink. Water splashed up my arm, cold enough to jolt me back a little. Lisa jerked just a twitch in her shoulders, then straightened like nothing happened. She folded her arms over her chest and watched me like she was bored. Done throwing things, or do you need a few more rounds? Don't start with that tone. My voice came out rough, already too loud, already wrong. I could feel my pulse jumping in my neck, hot and stupid. You walked in and went straight for my throat. What did you expect? I knew I sounded defensive, and yeah, that only made me push harder. She leaned back against the counter and tilted her head. Right, this is on me. Her jaw moved like she was chewing every word before spitting it out. All I said was I'm tired of living like a placeholder. That word landed between us and just sat there ticking. I laughed once, sharp, the kind of laugh that stings your own teeth. Placeholder, you live in this house, you eat, you relax. Placeholder where? I pointed around us like the walls would back me up. You have everything you asked for, but sure, you're suffering. Even while I talked, I knew I sounded like a cliché. She pushed off the counter and walked closer, slow and deliberate. Listen to yourself. Her eyes swept over me, taking inventory, and it made my skin crawl. You think buying groceries and showing up counts as partnership? She shook her head once, like she could not believe she married this. You want a parade because you pay bills on time. Her voice climbed, not shrill, just steady and mean. I'm done begging you to notice me when you walk in the door. She jabbed a finger at my chest, and I felt myself step back. You act like I should be grateful anyone bothered to pick me. That's not what I said. I grabbed the edge of the counter to keep my hands busy. If you're unhappy, you talk to me, you don't just attack. I hated how formal that sounded, like I was reading off a card. What I really meant was, why are you doing this tonight? She laughed under her breath, no humor in it at all. We have talked over and over, and you shrug it off every time. She brushed past me and yanked open the cabinet where we kept our drinks. You tune out, you scroll, you nod, then you go back to whatever. She pulled out a bottle and set it down hard, making me flinch. I grabbed it before she could touch it again and twisted the cap. Vite, Neom trash, I zone out, congratulations. The first swallow burned straight down, which was the point. Guess you're some saint for putting up with a guy like me. That bitterness tasted worse than the liquor, if I am honest. Her gaze dropped to the bottle in my hand and stayed there. That right there. She moved her fingers in a little circle toward it, almost lazy. You run to that every time things get uncomfortable. She looked back up at me and something had gone flat in her face. You know what scares me most? She rested her back against the fridge and crossed her ankles. I could disappear for a week and you'd just adjust. She snapped her fingers once, quiet but sharp. You'd pour another drink, find a new routine, keep breathing. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I would fall apart. Instead, I heard myself say something cruel, almost on autopilot. Don't act like people are lining up outside to rescue you. The second it came out, I knew I aimed low. Her mouth twitched, not from hurt, from something closer to disgust. You think that's not true? She tilted her head like she was honestly curious. You really believe no one out there knows my value? Her eyes stayed on mine as her phone buzzed on the counter. She did not look at the screen, which somehow made it worse. That little vibration might as well have been a flare. My gaze dropped to the phone, then back to her. Who keeps texting you at night? My throat tightened as I asked, because I already felt the answer. Work emergency, or one of these people who know your value. She lifted the phone and spun it once in her hand. Imagine assuming the worst instead of asking, that's impressive. She set it back down, screen still dark, as if to prove a point. Maybe if you paid attention earlier, you wouldn't be guessing now. There was a beat of silence where I could have backed off. I did not back off. Then tell me straight. I stepped closer, close enough to see the faint twitch in her cheek. Is there someone waiting for you to finally be single? The room felt too tight, like the walls were leaning in to listen. She held my stare a second longer, then exhaled through her nose. There are people who see me, yeah. No hesitation, no stumble, just that. People who make effort without acting like they're doing charity. She shrugged, small, like it was a boring fact. That answer hit me harder than any punch. So that's it. My hand tightened around the neck of the bottle until it creaked. You keep me around until you line up whatever's next. I heard my own voice, low and ugly, and hated it. She rolled her eyes, which somehow cut deeper than yelling. You keep yourself around. Her hand flicked toward the living room, toward the life we had. You coast, you sulk, you chuck things in the sink. She drew in a breath and looked me dead in the face. I'm not scared anymore. Her tone changed there, softer and more dangerous. If you don't want to step up, I'm not staying chained to this. Her shoulders dropped like a decision had just locked in place. That kind of partner can be swapped out and you know it. The word swapped hit exactly where she wanted. I felt it in my stomach, heavy and cold. You really see me like that? I could hear the rasp in my own question, which annoyed me. I wanted to sound furious, not wounded. She turned away and grabbed her bag from the hook by the door. Keys clinked as she dug around inside, hands moving fast. I'm done repeating myself tonight. The way she said tonight made my chest tighten. Like this was not temporary, just the first step. You walk out now, you don't come back, like nothing happened. My words chased her across the room before I could stop them. You step outside that door, we're not hitting rewind tomorrow. I know I sounded like a threat and a plea mashed together. That mix is never a good look on anyone. Her hand paused on the handle, then she looked over her shoulder. That's the point. 3 small words, calm, almost tired. If I come back, it's because something actually changed. She pulled the door open and a draft rushed in between us. Where are you going? It came out more choked than commanding. She glanced down at her phone, thumb brushing the screen once. Loud? She did not elaborate, which hurt more than any specific answer. She stepped through and yanked the door shut with a sharp final click. The sound of it echoed through the house longer than it should have. I stood there staring at the wood like it might open again. My hand was still around the bottle, knuckles white and shaking. Everything inside me felt loud, but the room was dead quiet. I took another drink, deeper this time, as if that would slow my brain. It did the opposite. Thoughts started slamming into each other, wild and messy. Her lines replayed in my head, along with that buzz of her phone. I tried to convince myself she was alone and failed. You ever pace in circles because sitting still feels like suffocating? That was me, tracking the same path across the floor, back and forth. I'd stare at the door, then the clock, then her blank corner of the couch. Every loop made my chest tighter, not calmer. Each step just wound me up more. My phone lay on the table, screen glowing with the last app I used. I snatched it up and opened our chat without thinking. The cursor blinked at the bottom, waiting for whatever garbage I would type. First message came out angry, accusing, full of sharp edges. I erased it and started again. Come home now. I stared at the words, hating them and needing them at once. They looked weak, so I added more, then deleted half. What I finally sent was a messy blend of blame and begging. The second it whooshed away, regret hit just as hard as fear. No answer. I watched the tiny area where bubbles would appear, nothing. I fired off another line, this one harsher, calling her selfish. Then a third one right after, trying to pull it back. I could feel myself spiraling and still kept typing. Somewhere in that storm of messages, I crossed a line. I sent something dramatic, way over the top, about ending it all. Even as my thumb hit send, I knew I was pushing too far. I wanted a reaction, any reaction, not to scare her into calling cops. But once that kind of thing goes out, you cannot drag it back. The silence after that last text felt different. Heavier, thicker, like the air itself was waiting with me. I put the phone down, then picked it up again 3 seconds later. Still nothing from her, not even a stop. My heart did this strange stumble that made me grab the back of a chair. I needed movement, any movement, or I was going to explode. The walls felt too close, the house too small for both my thoughts and me. I grabbed my keys from the counter and shoved them in my pocket. If she would not come back, I told myself I'd go find her. It sounds insane now, but in that moment it felt logical. The buzz from the bottle was stronger when I reached the driveway. The night air hit my face and made my head spin in a slow loop. For a second I stood there, keys in hand, thinking I should go back inside. The part of me that still had sense was whispering to just lie down. The louder part wanted to chase every place she could be. I unlocked the car and slid into the driver's seat, fingers clumsy. My phone went into the cup holder, screen up, just in case she replied. The engine rumbled to life, and that sound gave me this fake courage. I told myself I would drive slow, keep it together, nothing crazy. You already know that plan did not hold for long. I backed out and turned onto the main road, eyes darting everywhere. Every set of headlights could have been hers, every parking lot her destination. I checked my phone at every stop, which meant I barely stopped at all. The messages screen stared back, unchanged, unforgiving. Each empty check made me press the gas a little harder. Somewhere along that stretch, the anger shifted into something else. It felt less like rage and more like free fall. My hands were on the wheel, but the rest of me was drifting. I remember the blur of the roadside, the rhythmic thump of the seams. I remember glancing down toward my phone one more time. After that, nothing clear. Just fragments scattered out of order. A harsh sound, maybe my own voice, maybe metal, maybe both. And the faint, panicked echo of a woman shouting my name from far away. The next full image I have is that hospital ceiling and the empty chair. I powered on the phone with my thumb buried under the blanket. The screen flared to life and my heart jumped with it. For a second, all I saw was my reflection in the black edges. Puffy eyes, bandaged, dried blood at the hairline, the whole disaster. Exactly the kind of face you avoid in your own camera. Notifications stacked across the top like a scoreboard. Missed calls, messages, alerts from apps that suddenly meant nothing. I unlocked it and went straight to the call log out of instinct. 3 attempts from a hospital number, 1 from my sister, none from Lisa. That list hit harder than any painkiller in the IV. I checked the time on the last incoming call. It matched what the doctor mentioned earlier, just after I was brought in. They tried to reach family while I was out, which stung in its own way. My sister at least had tried again later, probably panicking. I pushed past all of that and opened my messages with Lisa. The chat looked like a crime scene made of words. On my side, blocks of text, some short, some ranting. On hers, the last answer from before she grabbed her keys. Everything after that was just me yelling into a void. Every line I swore I would never send during a fight was there. I scrolled up to the one that changed the whole night. The one I barely remembered typing, just that sick rush after. I get why you think I don't matter, maybe I should just stop. Reading it now made my stomach turn and my palms sweat. It looked less like drama and more like a red flag. No reply from her after that, only the timestamp on my accident. Same hour, same range, like you could draw a line between them. I wanted to believe she read it and grabbed the phone right away. I wanted to picture her dialing with shaking hands, near tears. The problem is, my life rarely matches the version I invent. I backed out of the chat and noticed a new thread near the top. A group conversation I did not recognize, created days ago. The title was some inside joke I was not part of. Right under it, I saw her name with a little heart icon. Next to it, another name I did not recognize at all. I tapped it before I could talk myself out of it. The first thing that loaded was a photo from a bar. Not a scenic shot, not a menu, just a shoulder and a profile. You could see her hair from the side, leaning in close. The guy in frame had his face front and center, grinning wide. Under the picture sat a line of messages stacked like arrows. Look who showed up to rescue me tonight, from the guy. Someone who actually listens, from her with a wink emoji attached. A couple more comments from names I did not know, laughing. Reading strangers react to your marriage problems is a special kind of punch. I scrolled up a little and there was my own name. Not in a sweet way, not even neutral, just dropped like a burden. He's doing his usual sulk, from her, followed by a sigh emoji. Still thinking he's the only option I've got, another line. For a second I honestly wondered if they were even talking about me. You know that moment when your chest goes hollow and hot at once? Like your body cannot decide if it wants to freeze or burst. That was me, staring at lines of text I never should have seen. I kept reading anyway because of course I did. Curiosity and self-harm are sometimes the same motion. Closer to the bottom were screenshots. My messages from that night, captured and tossed into the chat. One where I called her selfish, cropped perfectly. Another one where I threatened to leave if she walked out. And finally the dramatic one, the one about being done. Under that last screenshot the guy replied fast. Holy hell, dude is a walking red flag, followed by a clown emoji. Then plenty of guys would treat you like you deserve. Someone else added, you should have upgraded ages ago. That word hit like a repeat of our kitchen argument, only uglier. Her answer came right after theirs, no hesitation. Working on it. 2 simple words, a smirking face, nothing more. No defense of me, no pushback, not even a he's hurting. Just that small promise to people who were not her husband. I stared at the timestamp on that message. It lined up almost exactly with when I must have grabbed my keys. While I stomped out, half drunk and shaking, she was joking. While I sped down that road checking my phone, she was smiling at his picture. The overlap made my hands tremble around the device. In the hospital bed, I actually tried to defend her in my head. Maybe she typed it before I wrote that scary line. Maybe she hated herself afterward and that is why she called. I kept stacking weak excuses like sandbags against a flood. The truth still pushed through every gap. A soft knock hit the door and made me jump. I locked the phone fast and slid it back under the blanket. A woman in business clothes stepped in with a folder hugged to her chest. Her badge caught my attention before her name did. Ethan Wright, she asked, already pulling up a chair. Yeah. My throat sounded rough again, like I had been yelling. She sat beside the bed and opened the folder halfway. I'm the on-call counselor for the unit. That title alone told me exactly which text they had seen. We review certain emergency reports. Her tone was careful, each word weighed before it left her mouth. I wanted to check on you after reading what Dispatch documented. My fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket without meaning to. I knew exactly what phrase she meant, and so do you. The call that came in from your phone was very brief. She glanced at the paper, then at my face. The woman on the line sounded distressed and mentioned you might hurt yourself. I felt my face heat up, shame crawling over everything else. Knowing strangers heard my lowest moment is a special kind of burn. She continued before I could come up with a protest. Then the line cut out and responders found your vehicle shortly after. Her eyes stayed on mine, steady but not cold. Can you walk me through what you were feeling before you drove? That question landed heavier than any medical update. I could have shrugged it off, claimed it was drunk talk. I almost did, the excuse sat right there on my tongue. I was angry. The word came out thin, know her. Near enough. Wanted to prove a point, I guess. Prove what? She leaned forward a little, elbows on her knees. I stared at the railing of the bed, avoiding her eyes. That she was wrong about me not mattering. Even saying that out loud made me feel pathetic. Did you actually want to die that night? There it was, the blunt version, no padding. I opened my mouth, closed it, tried again. I wanted her to panic. My voice dropped so low I almost did not hear it myself. You wanted a reaction. She nodded slowly, like that fit a familiar pattern. That doesn't make the behavior safe or okay, but it explains some of it. I could feel the lecture coming and braced for impact. She surprised me by pausing instead, giving me a longer look. Has this kind of thing happened before? She lifted the folder a little, not reading, just fidgeting. Big conflict, impulsive move, regret the next morning. I shook my head out of habit, then caught myself. Not like this, I answered, which was only half a lie. She let that sit, not pushing harder, which somehow felt worse. We'll set you up with follow-up support after discharge. She closed the folder and rested it on her lap. In the meantime, we recommend you avoid heavy decisions while recovering. The irony of that statement in the middle of my marriage implosion almost made me laugh. Is your wife involved in your care right now? That question snapped me back faster than anything else. Oh, she's busy. It was the weakest attempt at a cover I have ever produced. Even I heard how hollow it sounded. The counselor studied my face for a long beat. We reached out to the emergency contact on file. She did not say the name, just watched me. There was no answer, so we left a voicemail. That phrasing told me more than she intended. She may call back later today, she added, softening her tone. If she does, do you want her updated on everything? I pictured Lisa laughing over her phone with strangers again. Their hearts and emojis stacked under my screenshots. The idea of her getting a heroic spouse call twisted my gut. I'll decide when she actually shows up. My voice came out sharper than I intended. The counselor nodded once and rose from the chair. Fair enough, for now focus on healing and staying honest with staff. She left the room with that line hanging in the air. Once the door clicked shut, I grabbed for the phone again. My hand moved fast, almost desperate, no hesitation this time. I reopened the group thread and scrolled further back. More jokes about married life, more digs at me, more flirting. The slow build hurt almost more than the big hits. At one point she had written, "He thinks I'd never actually leave." Under that, the guy replied, "Then stop proving him right." I could see the scene in my kitchen replaying in those lines. All the hints were there, I just refused to read them earlier. Turns out denial is not just a word from therapy worksheets. I snapped a quick photo of the most damning messages. Not for revenge yet, just because I suddenly did not trust memory. Pain meds fuzz your brain, and I needed proof later. I opened my email app and sent them to myself. Watching the little sending bar crawl forward gave me a weird comfort. My thumb hovered over the guy's name in the thread. I considered tapping it and sending some blazing message. Something about boundaries, something about staying away from married women. I even drafted a line in my head that sounded tough. Then I pictured him screenshotting that too and feeding it back to the group. Instead, I backed out and opened my sister's texts. Her most recent message was all caps, full of worry and guilt. "Call me the second you can, I'm driving up if you don't answer." My finger hovered over the call button for a few seconds. I wanted comfort, but I did not want to explain everything yet. If you have ever avoided the person most likely to help you, you know exactly how twisted that instinct feels while you do it. I told myself I would call her after I slept again. After I figured out what story I was even telling. Was I the reckless husband or the abandoned one, or both? The door opened again and the nurse from earlier stepped inside. She checked the monitor quickly, then looked at my face. "You're a lot more awake now," she noted, adjusting the IV line. "Pain level 1 to 10. I gave some number that sounded tougher than I felt. She tugged the curtain closed a little more for privacy. "You had a visitor earlier while you were still out. My heart jumped into my throat so fast I almost choked. Who? The word came out harsh, more demand than question. Your sister, she answered, glancing at the chart. She stayed for a while, then had to head out for work. Relief and disappointment tangled up together in my chest. Anyone else? I asked, already bracing. If Lisa's name came next, I honestly did not know how I'd react. DH? Nurse hesitated a second, just enough to stab. No one else so far. She busied herself with the blood pressure cuff like that answered everything. If someone checks in at the front desk for you, we'll bring them up. My pulse on the monitor climbed even though I was lying still. Did my sister talk to you about anything? I gestured vaguely, not wanting to say crash fight texts. Just that you had a rough night and she was worried. The nurse gave me a brief sympathetic look, not prying. I told her we're keeping a close eye on you. Yeah. The word felt thin in my mouth, practically useless. As she turned to go, I blurted something without planning. If my wife calls, don't tell her everything yet. The nurse paused, hand on the door handle, and looked back. That's up to you, she replied after a moment. There's a release form for who we can discuss details with. She nodded toward the clipboard on the rolling tray. You can adjust it whenever you're ready. Then she slipped out, leaving me alone with that choice. I pulled the clipboard over and scanned the form. There it was, Lisa's name listed neatly, already checked for full access. My signature sat at the bottom from some earlier visit. I stared at that little box for a long time. It felt stupid how much power one pen stroke suddenly had. After a minute, I uncapped the pen with my free hand. The motion felt clumsy, but I got the tip to the paper. I drew a hard line through the checkmark beside her name. Then I initialed the change in the margin like they trained us. The scratch of ink sounded louder in my head than the machine's. I know how petty that looks written out right now. Lying in a hospital bed, crossing her off like a task. But in that moment, it was the only boundary I could set. The only place where I could say no without getting talked over. I needed one corner of this mess that she did not control. Phone back in my hand, I opened our chat again. The last message she had from me was still that heavy line. No, are you okay? No, I'm here. Nothing from her side. I stared at the text box, trying to decide my next move. Every option felt like picking which way to hurt myself. Part of me wanted to apologize and beg in the same breath. Another part wanted to send the photos I took from the group. Attach them with a single question, force her to explain. I typed 3 different openers and erased each one. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, frozen. In the end, I sent something small and blunt. I'm alive. 2 words, no punctuation, nothing extra. If she cared, she had room to respond. If she didn't, that silence would say enough. I watched the little delivered mark appear under it. Then I waited for the typing bubble like some trained animal. Nothing moved. Seconds stretched out, then minutes, then a nurse walking by outside. Still no sign of her even glancing at the screen. Lying there, bandaged and wired up, I finally admitted something ugly. She might not just be angry. She might already be building a life where I am a story, not a partner. And the people cheering her on in that chat were helping. I just did not know yet exactly how far it had already gone. The handle turned and I knew it was her before I saw anything. My back straightened on its own, tugging stitches, monitor jumping. She stepped in like she was walking into a waiting room, not my nightmare. Her eyes swept the machines first, then finally landed on my face. My chest did that stupid tight squeeze I had promised myself I was done with. Well, she stopped at the edge of the bed and let that one word hang. You look rough. Her mouth tried for a sympathetic curve, but her gaze stayed busy. She checked the IV line, the monitor, everything but the part of me that hurt most. You weren't here. I got it out before she could start her script. She blinked once like I had skipped a cue she wrote for us. I came as soon as I could. Her purse slid off her shoulder and landed on the chair like she owned the place. It's been a whole day. My voice scraped, but I kept going. The hospital called, my sister drove over and left again. I nodded at the empty doorway. You nothing until now. She dragged the chair closer and sat without asking. Do you have any idea what my morning looked like? She rubbed her forehead like the victim of a scheduling conflict. I got a voicemail saying you crashed your car after sending threats. Her eyes finally locked on mine. I had to figure out what you told them. There it was. Not are you in pain, not I'm glad you're alive, just that. What I told them. I let the words roll around in my mouth like something sour. I told them I got in an accident because I was pissed and stupid. Her jaw clenched at pissed and stupid, but not for the reason you'd hope. You didn't mention our argument. It came out fast, almost tripping over itself. Or those texts right. As they. He leaned closer, fingers tight around the edge of the mattress. Relax. I pulled my hand away from hers before she could grab it. I didn't give them a play-by-play of you walking out. Her shoulders dropped half an inch at that. They asked if I was trying to hurt myself. I told them I wanted you scared. She flinched at that last part, then masked it with annoyance. Congrats, mission accomplished. Her laugh was short and dry. I wake up to a message that sounds like a goodbye, then a hospital number. Her eyes shone for a second, but she blinked it away like a bug. The call to dispatch came from my phone. I watched her carefully as I said it. The doctor told me some woman sounded panicked, then the line cut. I tilted my head, waiting. Was that you, or do I have some secret guardian I don't know about? She looked down at her hands, thumbs pressed tight together. I tried to reach you after that last text. Her voice dropped a notch. You didn't pick up, so yeah, I called. She glanced up, checking my reaction like she was taking notes. Then the connection went dead and I couldn't get through again. It should have landed like proof she cared. Instead, it felt like she was presenting an alibi. You called, then what? I kept my tone level, which took effort. Sat by the window, cried, came straight here. Her mouth flickered at the corner. I had no clue where you were, Asen. She caught herself, like she remembered we weren't on first-name terms right now. I'm not a cop, I don't know how this stuff works. She crossed one leg over the other. I waited for someone to call back. I let that sit there heavy. You didn't call my sister, you didn't come to the hospital last night. She sucked in a breath through her teeth. I couldn't just vanish from my own life. Her hand drifted toward her purse, then stopped. I had things I had to handle. Like what? My voice dropped, almost calm. Those two words were a knife. Her eyes flashed for a second, quick and sharp. Like work, like explaining why my husband might be in a psych ward. Her emphasis on husband sounded less loving and more like a legal term. I'm not in a psych ward. I gestured at the cast, the bruises, the wires. Just the regular crash and burn floor, thanks. I fixed on her again. Funny thing though, counselor came by. Her expression tightened just a hair. They read the transcript from that call. I tapped my temple lightly. They take that stuff serious. She shifted in the chair, crossing her arms as if bracing. What did you tell them about us? Her question cut mine in half. I told them I was angry, drunk, and pathetic. There it was, my ugly truth laid out neat. I told them I wanted to scare you, not die. I raised my brows. You worried I mentioned your little group chat instead. That got her. Her shoulders jerked like I'd slapped her. What chat? Her voice went flat too fast. I pulled the phone from under the blanket and unlocked it. My thumb found the thread without even looking. I turned the screen toward her and watched the color drain from her face. She stared at the photo of her leaning in close to that guy. Her mouth opened, then snapped shut, then opened again. You went through my messages. Her eyes snapped back to mine. You know how messed up that is. It almost made me laugh right there. Yeah, super invasive of me to look at our shared phone bill nightmare. My voice shook now, anger pushing past the pain meds. You used my name as a joke for strangers. I flicked to the screenshot of my own texts, lined up like trophies. You fed them my breakdown and they slapped emojis on it. She dragged a hand through her hair, fingers trembling now. It isn't what it looks like. I snorted because come on. You're in a bar with some guy flaming me in a group. What exactly is the alternative angle here? The monitor next to the bed picked up my pulse, tattling. They're coworkers. She threw the word out fast like a shield. I vented about my marriage to people who know me. She lifted her chin. Everyone does that, Ethan. You think I'm the only one. Her foot tapped against the floor in this jittery little rhythm. Most people don't post their husband's worst messages like memes. I locked eyes with her. Most people don't write working on it when someone tells them to upgrade. She went still at that line, then looked away. That was a joke. Even she didn't sound convinced. You know what this looks like from where I'm lying. I gestured at myself, the room, the whole wreck. You walked out, met up with people who would cheer you on, and started auditioning replacements. My throat tightened, meanwhile I was spinning out in the car alone. I was not proud of that last bit, but it was the truth. She pressed her lips together until they turned thin. You were not alone. Her voice rose. I was on my phone calling, texting, trying to figure out where you went. Her hands shook again, this time from something closer to panic. I didn't know if you were face down in a ditch or just being dramatic. I almost asked which option she was rooting for. Instead, I went for something else. The nurse told me someone visited while I was out. I watched her carefully. They said it was my sister. Her jaw set. You couldn't come last night, but she could. She exhaled hard through her nose. I didn't know which version of you I'd be walking into. She dug in her purse at last and pulled out her phone. Look. She flipped the screen toward me, showing a list of missed calls from the hospital. 3 calls. Her nail tapped the screen beside the timestamps. I was in a meeting for the first one, voicemail for the second. By the time I got the third, your sister had already answered and gone over there. She dropped the phone into her lap. I didn't want to swarm you with 20 people at once. So you came today to what? I drew the word out, check my breathing or manage optics. Her head snapped up, manage what? You're not on my release anymore. I nodded toward the clipboard. They can't just hand you updates. Her stare snapped to the chart, then back to me. You took me off. She said it slowly, like she needed to taste every syllable. Out of everything, that's what hit her hardest. Not the crash, not the texts, not the bar, that form. That's where we're at, yeah. I met her look and did not blink. You don't get to play spokesperson for a guy you mocked in a group chat. Her fingers curled into fists against her thighs. So now we're keeping score through paperwork. She stood up suddenly, pushing the chair back with a scrape. You think you can just cut me out and tell whatever story you want. She paced once, cage tight, then swung back toward the bed. Do you understand what this looks like from the outside? Her voice shook now, but from fear, not sadness. From the outside, it looks like a drunk driver who threatened self-harm and crashed. She jabbed a finger toward the window, toward the parking lot I couldn't see. They're going to ask me questions, my family will ask, my job will ask. She took a shaky breath. I cannot have them thinking I pushed you into this. There it was. The core of why she actually walked into my room. You're worried I'll tell people you told me I was replaceable and dipped. I let that word sit heavy between us. Maybe I will. Her face drained again. You can't. She moved closer, hands open now like she was begging for calm. You cannot go around telling everyone I drove you to almost killing yourself. Her voice cracked on killing and she swallowed hard. I don't control what people assume. I shrugged one shoulder, the only part that didn't throb. I barely control myself, remember. Even I winced at that one. I just know I'm done covering for both of us. She stared at me like she'd never actually seen me before. Then she dropped back into the chair, almost missing it. You think I'm some villain, don't you? She rubbed her temples again. You think this is easy for me. Her foot started that rapid tap again, faster now. I opened my mouth to tell her no, that she's not some cartoon. To admit I know I helped light the fuse. Before I could get there, she blurted over me. I'm pregnant. The word came out sharp, almost like a cough. Everything in me stopped. Breath, thoughts, every muscle. The monitor picked up the delay and tattled in beeps. I stared at her, waiting for her to say she was joking. She didn't. I would. That was all I could manage. She spread her fingers over her stomach, a small instinctive twitch. I was going to tell you after things calmed down. Her eyes filled then, the first real crack I'd seen. I couldn't pull in a deep breath even if I wanted. How far along? My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Her gaze dropped to the floor, I'm not sure. Which was not an answer to that question, and we both knew it. Something cold slid down my spine as the math lined up in my head. Nausea, exhaustion, late nights with coworkers who see you. My words came out uneven, pieces of different thoughts jammed together. I shook my head once slow, is it mine? The room pressed in while I waited. She looked up so fast her hair flew across her cheek. I don't know. No spin, no pause, just those 3 words. Every muscle in my chest seized at the same time. I actually thought for a second the crash had finally caught up. I didn't plan any of this. Her voice went raw, the edges sanded off. You drove drunk and scared the hell out of me, and yeah, I leaned on someone I shouldn't have. She wiped at her face with the heel of her hand. I've been trying not to fall apart long before you hit that guardrail. I believed that part, which somehow made it worse. So now what? The question came out slow. You want me to play dad by default? My fingers dug into the blanket, knotting it between them. Smile in family photos and hope the kid has my eyes. She sucked in a breath like she'd been slapped. I need you not to blow up my entire life while I figure this out. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, posture collapsed. I need you to not tell my parents or HR or anyone, not yet. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. I need time. I watched her, really watched her, for the first time in that room. Not the careful outfit, not the fake composure, just the mess underneath. She looked terrified, cornered, and still somehow ready to bargain. The crash had broken my bones. This moment cracked everything else. Say it again. My fingers locked around the rail hard enough to sting. The monitor started climbing, loud and accusing beside my head. She flinched at the sound, not at my face. I'm pregnant, she repeated, quieter, like lowering the volume changed anything. You sure? It came out more like a challenge than a question. Her hand moved over her stomach again, that unconscious little sweep. I took tests, I have an appointment next week. She swallowed, this is hypothetical. My mouth went dry in a way water would not fix. How far along? Her gaze slid toward the window, anywhere but me. I don't know exactly, she said, shoulders hunching. Which told me more than any number of weeks would have. A beat passed before I pushed the next question out. Could be mine. My voice caught halfway through the sentence. Could be his. I did not even need to say the guy's name. Her eyes snapped back to mine like I'd twisted something. That's not how I wanted to tell you. She dragged in a long breath through her nose. There's overlap, I'm not going to lie about that. Her fingers tightened together until the knuckles went pale. The monitor beeped faster and a nurse popped her head in. You doing okay in here? I forced my voice down, yeah, just talking. She studied the screen, studied my face, then pulled the door half shut. Try to keep it calm, your ribs don't like drama. As soon as we were alone again, I went back in. How many times with him? No name, no title, just the weight of the question. She stared at the floor for a long second. Enough that I can't pretend the timing doesn't matter. I let that hit. You're telling me I might be raising another man's kid. The words tasted like metal in my mouth. And you came here to what? Ask me to sign up anyway. My chest hurt in a new way that had nothing to do with the crash. She stood, then sat again like her legs changed their mind. I came here because we don't have to destroy everything. Her voice shook, but the pitch was controlled, almost practiced. This doesn't have to be a scandal, Ethan. She caught herself, we can make this look like a turning point. Make it look like. I repeated that slowly because there it was. You want a story? I nodded toward the machines, the bandages, the whole scene. This is pretty good material, I'll give you that. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, eyes locked on mine. Listen to me. Her tone sharpened, you're alive, that alone lets us reset. She gestured around the room. You admit you've been distant, you get help, we say the baby brought us back together. You want me to play grateful miracle husband. The laugh that came out of me sounded wrong even to my ears. I smash my car, you step out with some guy and we call it even. I shook my head once, careful of the pain. You hear how insane that sounds out loud. It's not about even. She snapped that back immediately. It's about surviving this without losing everything we've built. Her eyes glistened, but her jaw stayed firm. If this blows up, my parents will cut me off, work will quietly ice me out, I'm not stupid. And I'm what in that plan? I lifted my hand off the blanket, palm open. The reformed man who saw the light after kissing a guardrail. I watched her flinch at that word and kept going. You get sympathy, I get to be the cautionary tale who improved. You get a family that stays intact, she fired back, leaning closer. You get a child who knows you as dad from day one. She hesitated, then pushed the next line out. No one has to know about the overlap. There it was, the deal. Except you, me, him, and that little fan club on your phone. I tilted my head, watching her freeze. You really trust every person in that chat to keep quiet forever? She opened her mouth, closed it, then reached for a different angle. People forget fast when there isn't a spectacle. You're asking me to build my entire life on your PR strategy. I lifted the rail slightly and let it clank back down. If this kid isn't mine, I spent 18 years living a lie. My voice cracked on lie and I pushed past it. Then what? They grow up and find a DNA test in some Christmas kid. She winced like I'd just described a car wreck. We don't have to decide that right now. Her tone softened, a coaxing cadence I knew too well. We can do testing later, privately, when everything settles. Her hand reached for mine again. For now, we just need alignment. Alignment? That word almost made me laugh. This isn't a work presentation, Lisa. I pulled my hand away and let it drop back onto my chest. You're talking about rewriting reality because the real version threatens your image. She straightened, eyes sharpening again. You want the real version out there. Her voice dropped. You want your parents hearing I cheated while pregnant, hearing you drove drunk after sending suicidal messages. Her gaze pinned me in place. You think they'll line up on your side. And there it is. I exhaled slowly, the warning. She shook her head quickly. It's not a warning, it's the truth. Her fingers dug into her knees. You hand this story to the world, it won't land how you think. You'll make sure of that, I answered, quieter. She didn't deny it. I have texts, Ethan. She watched my face as she said it. I have your words in black and white, copied, saved. I've seen what you do with screenshots. I nodded at my phone on the tray. You crop out half the conversation and pass it around for reactions. I took a shallow breath. So what's the ask? Spell it out plain. She looked almost relieved to have that opening. Help me frame this. She counted points off on shaky fingers. Car accident as wake-up call, counseling for you, supportive wife who never gave up, surprise baby bringing everyone closer. Her eyes met mine, we both stick to it, no side stories. And in return, because nothing she'd said was truly for me. In return, I don't tell anyone you might be carrying someone else's kid. I let the words land hard between us. And I don't blow up your little romance thread at work. She closed her eyes for a second like that hurt physically. In return, we don't burn everything down in one day. She opened them again, wet now but steady. We have time to figure out if we can fix us, even if it's just enough to co-parent. Her voice cracked on parent and she pressed her lips together to stop it. Here's the part where past me would have folded. Would have said, okay, sure, let's protect everyone's feelings. I stared at the blanket instead of her, counting the tiny patterns. I'll be honest, I said finally, I don't trust you even a little right now. The monitor beeped along with my pulse, keeping me honest. Her chin trembled once before she forced it still. Then trust that blowing this up helps nobody. She stood, pacing a short line at the foot of the bed. You drag this out into the open, I go defensive. He goes defensive, everyone picks sides, no one wins. She stopped and gripped the rail, especially not that baby. I hated that she had a point there. I did not hate it enough to hand her my spine. If that child is mine, I will show up, I said slowly. I will pay whatever needs paying, I will be present. I met her eyes, but I'm not your cover story. She stared at me like the air just got knocked out of her. You're talking like we're already done. She took a step closer, one hand flat on the mattress. We had one awful night, Ethan. Her voice climbed, people come back from worse. One awful night, plus however many nights you spent getting comfort from another man. My words came out low, almost calm. Plus this pregnancy you can't confidently connect to me. I shrugged a little, that's more than a bad Thursday. Her shoulders slumped, the fight leaking out for a moment. Blaze. It was barely audible. I'm begging you, don't call a lawyer yet, don't tell my parents anything, don't tell your sister about the baby until I'm ready. Her fingertips pressed into the blanket near my arm. Just give me a little runway. I stared at her hand, so close to mine, not touching. Do you hear yourself? I forced my gaze back to her face. You're not asking me to heal, you're asking me to stall while you decide whether to stay with me or your upgrade. The word tasted disgusting, but it was hers, not mine. She recoiled like I'd slapped her again. There is no upgrade conversation happening. Her eyes flashed then dimmed, not like that. The hesitation on that last part was all I needed. She dragged in a breath. I broke something, I know that, I'm still here. You're here because I got half broken on a highway. The honesty of that sentence hit both of us at once. Would you be in this room if I'd just driven around angry and come home later? I waited. She didn't answer. That silence did the deciding for me. Okay. I reached toward the little tray with my phone and wallet. She watched the movement, confusion sliding in. What are you doing? Getting someone in my corner who isn't high on. Group chat applause. My fingers closed around the phone, clumsy but determined. I unlocked it and opened my messages. My sister's name sat near the top, unread text still bold. I hit call before I could talk myself out of it. Her voice burst through the speaker, tight with worry. Are you okay? Can you talk? Do you need me there? I glanced at Lisa and turned the volume down a little. I'm awake, I answered. I'm banged up, but I'm here. My throat tightened. I need a referral for a good divorce attorney. The word divorce landed in the room like a dropped weight. On the other end, my sister went silent for a beat. Text me details, she said finally, voice steadier than mine. I'll ask around, you're not doing this alone. We hung up with a promise to talk later. Lisa had gone pale, one hand flat against her chest. You're serious? Her voice came out hoarse. You're really jumping straight to lawyers. She shook her head slowly. After everything, that's your first move. It's my first honest move in a long time. I pulled up my email and found the thread I'd sent myself. The screenshots from her group chat waited there, cold and clear. With a few taps, I forwarded them to a new address. Subject line for legal records. You're weaponizing this. Her voice climbed, raw panic edging it now. You're actually archiving all that like some courtroom slideshow. She moved closer, hovering over the bed. You realize this makes both of us look awful, right? Her hand hovered near my phone, then dropped. I realize I've spent years giving you the benefit of the doubt. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't need to. Now I'm building a file because you just told me our baby might belong to someone who calls me a clown emoji for sport. I grimaced at my own phrasing. I'm done taking people's word for anything. She turned away, pressing her fists to her forehead. They're going to rip me apart if this gets out. Her shoulders shook once, my parents' work, everyone. She spun back toward me. You think they'll believe you over their golden daughter who stood by her husband after an accident? I don't care who they believe anymore. That surprised even me as I said it. I care what's on paper, I care what a judge sees. I care that future kid, whoever they belong to, can look back and know I didn't just roll over. I let that hang between us. She stared like I'd become someone else overnight. The nurse poked her head in again, eyes flicking between us. Everything okay in here? I forced a tight breath. We're done for now. She looked at Lisa. Visiting hours ends soon anyway. When the door shut again, the room felt smaller. Lisa picked up her purse with jerky movements. You're making a huge mistake. Her voice steadied on that word like she found a script again. If you go nuclear, I will have to protect myself. She met my eyes. That means telling my version to anyone who asks. You do what you need to. I settled back against the pillow, exhausted. So will I. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them again. If the child is mine, I'll be there, but I won't be your shield. Her mouth opened like she had one last argument ready. Nothing came out. She stood there for another heartbeat, breathing hard. Then she turned and walked out, not looking back once. That was the moment I knew we were really over, crash or no crash. I signed my name on the discharge form and my phone buzzed. The pen slipped a little when I glanced at the screen. Unknown number, local area code, message preview cut off mid-word. I finished the signature anyway, my hand suddenly sweaty. The nurse took the clipboard like she wanted me out fast. You got a ride coming. She folded the papers, eyes flicking to my bag. Yeah, my sister's in the lot. I eased off the bed, ribs complaining with each breath. The phone buzzed again in my pocket, more impatient this time. In the wheelchair by the door, I finally checked it. Two texts from the same unfamiliar number stacked together. This is Mark, we need to talk about Lisa. And right under it, and about the baby. My stomach clenched so hard I almost asked for another barf bag. I typed back with stiff fingers every letter and effort. Can't talk now, leaving hospital, email me instead. Then I added the same address I used for the screenshots. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then nothing. The orderly started pushing me before I could change my mind. My sister met us at the entrance with a tight hug. She kept it quick so she would not crush my bandages. You look horrible, she blurted, eyes already shiny. I actually laughed once, short and painful. Good, then it matches how I feel. She loaded my bag into her trunk and helped me in. The seat belt pressed across my chest and I almost panicked. For a second I was back on that highway hearing metal scream. My hand shot up and gripped the strap until the feeling paw. Zed, want me to drive slower, she asked, glancing over. Just drive normal, I answered, staring straight ahead. If we creep home, I'll think about it more. She nodded and pulled out of the lot. We rode in silence for a minute, just the engine and my thoughts. Then she broke it with the one question I knew was coming. What did Lisa say when she came? Her knuckles tightened on the wheel as she asked it. I watched the road slide under us through the windshield. She told me she's pregnant and not sure who the father is. There was no soft way to drop that bomb. Her foot jerked on the pedal, then steadied. You're serious? I nodded and forced my voice to stay even. She wants me to help her spin this as some healing story. I rested my head back. I told you I called a lawyer for a reason. She let out a low whistle that sounded more like a sigh. Okay, then we treat it like what it is. Her gaze stayed forward, but her tone snapped into focus. Did you send me those messages you mentioned? Yeah, check your email later, it's all there. We reached my place, if you could still call it mine. She had cleared a path through the hallway while I was out. Half-filled boxes lined the wall like witnesses waiting to testify. I shuffled inside, every step a reminder that healing hurts. The house felt smaller now that I knew I was just passing through. Where do you want to stay until you find something else? She set my bag down near the couch, watching my face. I've got room for a bit, she added quickly. I'm not moving in with you, I answered, the words reflex. I looked around the living room. I'll do short term, then I'm gone. My phone buzzed again and I checked out of habit. This time it was a notification from social media. Lisa tagged you in a post. The timing hit like a punch straight to the throat. I sat down slowly and opened it. Her caption stretched longer than any apology I ever got. Sometimes life throws you a curve that changes everything. Photo of us from before, chosen carefully, both smiling. She called me her rock, her best friend, her reason to keep going. And tucked in the middle, after a scary accident, we realized what matters. She ended with a line about growing our little family soon. A tiny picture of an ultrasound sat at the end of the carousel. Comments flooded in under it, hearts and prayer hands everywhere. So happy for you both, you two deserve this fresh start. You're glowing, mama, that baby is already so loved. I could not look away, no matter how much I wanted. She hadn't mentioned the driver's blood alcohol level. She hadn't mentioned the other guy or the messages or the doubt. Just a neatly packaged crisis turned blessing for public consumption. And there near the top, one comment stood out. Proud of you for standing by him after everything. The name attached made my jaw tighten. It was the same guy from the bar photo, just with privacy settings relaxed. No heart emoji this time, just a thumbs up and a smile. I almost threw the phone across the room. My sister leaned over my shoulder without asking. Her breath caught when she reached the ultrasound picture. You've got to be kidding me. She scrolled through the comments, eyes darkening with each one. She's painting you as the troubled husband she saved. I know. The word came out thin and exhausted. I pointed at the screen where his name sat under the post. He's in the comments like some supportive buddy. I clenched my teeth. She's building a bridge from him to that kid. You need your own version documented somewhere. My sister straightened, grabbing her phone. Screenshots of this too, all of it. She started capturing the post, the comments, everything on the page. If this goes to court, no one can say you're imagining things. Part of me felt petty doing it. Another part remembered signing that release form with shaking hands. This is what she wanted, you know. I gestured toward the stack of likes. She warned me she couldn't afford a scandal. My voice dropped, so she invented this redemption arc instead. Let her have her fan club, my sister said sharp now. You're not here to win a popularity contest. She locked her phone and looked me dead in the face. Your job is to protect your sanity and that kid if they're yours. The word if sat heavy between us. That night I slept like you sleep with one eye open. Every creak in the house made my ribs throb harder. I dreamed of seat belts and wedding vows tangled together. I woke up with my heart racing and my hand reaching for steering wheel. There was only the couch and my phone glowing next to me. New message from my attorney sat at the top of the screen. He had already read my email and the attachments. First step, we file for separation and request financial disclosures. His words were efficient, almost cold, which helped. Second, we put a pin in paternity. Why until there's something concrete? I called him back, voice still rough from sleep. We need to keep this as clean as possible. I stared at the ceiling while we talked. I'm not trying to ruin her, I just don't want to be dragged under with her. He chuckled once, that's usually how the honest ones start. We walked through numbers, timelines, all the unromantic pieces. When he asked about the pregnancy, my throat tightened again. She doesn't know who the father is, I managed. He exhaled through the receiver, then we document that uncertainty now. Keyboard clicks came through the line, judges hate surprises later. He advised me to stop direct contact unless necessary. Let her go through me for anything serious, he said. You're raw and she seems strategic, that combination is dangerous. I knew he was right, which pissed me off more. I was tired of being the one everyone thought needed handling. Of course, that's when she broke the new rule. 3 days later her name flashed across my screen, incoming call. I stared at it until the ringtone almost timed out. Then that old habit kicked in and I answered. Old mistakes do not vanish just because you hire counsel. I got your little legal love letter. Her voice came through tight, no hello. Congratulations on officially nuking whatever goodwill we had left. I pinched the bridge of my nose, ribs complaining with the movement. You saw this coming the second you walked out of that hospital room. You didn't even give me a week. She paced while she talked, I could hear it in the rhythm. I'm trying to hold my world together and you're lawyering up. I almost said that her world was also mine once. Instead, I asked the only thing that mattered. Why is your coworker liking all the baby comments under our photo? Silence stretched for a few seconds, heavy and telling. He's my friend, she answered finally, voice cooled over. He knows what we're going through. I closed my eyes, he knows more than I do apparently. We have an appointment tomorrow, she blurted. The change in subject made my teeth clench. First full prenatal check, maybe early screening, I don't know. Her breath hitched in my ear, the doctor wants to set up a plan. I waited because there was no way that was the whole reason for the call. I want you there. The words came out rushed, like she was afraid she'd lose nerve. For the appointment, she added quickly, it'll look better if we go as a couple. My jaw flexed so hard it hurt. You mean it'll look better for your parents and that guy at work? For the baby, she insisted, ramping up again. You think it doesn't matter if their father shows up for this stuff? I stared at a crack in the living room wall while she talked. I don't even know if I am the father, I answered. That's the point you keep skipping. Her breathing sharpened through the line. If you stay away, they're going to ask questions I can't answer. Her voice wobbled for the first time in that call. Please, just this one thing, sit in a chair and nod at the right times. I could feel the manipulation and the genuine fear tangled together. I said yes. Not because she deserved it, because that kid didn't choose any of this. The clinic wait room smelled like sanitizer and nerves. She sat 2 chairs away from me, hands gripping her bag strap. We looked like strangers who had picked the same appointment slot. When the nurse called her name, she stood and glanced back. You coming? I pushed myself up, ribs complaining under the sudden shift. In the exam room, I stayed near the wall, out of the way. The screen flickered on and the heartbeat filled the space. I'm not going to lie, that sound messed me up. It cut through all the anger, all the sarcasm, every legal thought. That was a life, whatever DNA said about it. I watched her face as she listened, eyes locked on the monitor. For a second, she looked like the woman I married, not the strategist. Afterward, in the hallway, she grabbed my wrist. "Thank you for coming," she murmured, voice almost careful. They asked if Dad would be involved. I didn't know what to say. I pulled my hand back and leaned against the wall. "Tell them you'll have an answer after the test." She went still, fingers curling around her folder. "You're really going through with that?" Her gaze searched my face for any softness. "Yeah," I said, simple. "I need truth on paper." She hugged the folder tighter like it could shield her. The test happened a few weeks later, cold and clinical. Swabs, signatures, a handshake from a technician who had seen worse. The waiting part dragged, every day stretching longer than it should. I threw myself into packing boxes and finding a short-term rental. Anything that felt like moving forward, even by inches. The results landed in my inbox on a dull afternoon. My new place still smelled like paint and cardboard. I opened the email with eight shaking hands, swallowing hard. The document loaded slowly, line by line, percentages and language. One sentence finally pulled itself into focus. Probability of paternity, 0%. My knees actually buckled a little, enough that I grabbed the counter. You'd think that would feel like freedom. Instead, it felt like someone slammed a door I didn't know I wanted open. I laughed once, a rough broken sound, then slid down to the floor. She called before I had time to decide whether to tell her. "You got yours too," she said, no preamble. I could hear traffic behind her, a turn signal clicking. "So that's that." Her voice sounded both relieved and wrecked. "Yeah." I rested my head against the cabinet, eyes shut. "It's his." The word tasted bitter and clean at the same time. I exhaled slowly. "You don't need me for this part." "That's not fair." Her breath hitched. "I still need you to not destroy me." There it was again, her real anchor in all this. "I'm not posting anything," I answered. "I'm not sending screenshots to your parents." I paused, "But I'm not lying for you either." "My mom thinks you're being noble," she whispered. "She thinks you stepped back because you're working on yourself." I snorted softly. Let her keep that version if it helps her sleep. I opened my eyes and stared at the cracks in the ceiling. "The court will see a different file, that's enough for me." Silence stretched so long I thought the call dropped. "I am engaged," she said finally, voice tiny. "To him." I swallowed around the lump in my throat. "Figures." "He's moving in next month," she added. "We're doing this." I pictured that bar photo again, now with a crib behind them. "You two deserve each other," almost slipped out. I bit it back because there was a kid attached now. "Then you don't need me except on official paperwork," I said instead. "That's where I'll be, on the boring forms, not in your script. You were never replaceable, you know." Her words came out rushed, like she wanted them logged somewhere. "Not really, not the way I threw at you." I let that hang for a few beats, measuring it. "Maybe not, but you spent a lot of energy proving otherwise." We wrapped the call with no promises, just tired goodbyes. The divorce dragged like they always do, but moved forward anyway. We split things down the middle, fought over a few stupid items, compromised. In the end, the judge stamped a stack of papers, and that was that. No dramatic speech, no tears in the courtroom, just done. Now I live in a small place with a mattress on the floor. Boxes double as tables because I'm still figuring out what stays. Sometimes I catch myself reaching for the second toothbrush that isn't there. Sometimes I wake up hearing that heartbeat from the clinic. Sometimes I scroll past her posts without tapping anything and call that progress. She still calls once in a while when anxiety spikes. Always about the same thing. "Do you still have those screenshots? Have you shown anyone? Are you planning to?" I tell her the truth every time. "They're saved, they're for me, for court if you ever twist this too far." That answer terrifies her more than any threat would. I'm not the hero of this story, and I know it. I drove drunk, I used fear to manipulate, I ignored warning signs until they exploded. If you were expecting a neat redemption arc, I can't give you that. What I can tell you is this. The night she told me I could be swapped out, I believed her. Now, watching her scramble to hold her image together. Watching her build a brand new life on top of old lies. I finally learned something stupidly simple. You can replace a spouse in a photo or a caption, sure. You can't replace the one person who remembers exactly how the story really went.